People are scared right now. Not kind of worried, scared. Not I saw a headline and moved on, scared. I'm talking about quiet fear. The kind people feel at 3 a.m. when they're staring at the ceiling doing math in their head. The kind that hits when a deposit notification comes in, and it's smaller than expected. Across America, millions of people are asking the same question in different ways. Is Social Security running out? Will my check disappear? Should I be worried? Or is this just another scare? And here's the problem. Everywhere you look, the answers are loud, dramatic, and completely opposite. One side screams, Social Security is going bankrupt. The other side says, relax, benefits are increasing. So which one is lying? Because both can't be true. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to admit. Both sides are telling part of the story, and almost no one is telling you the full one. Today, we're going to slow this down. No politics, no fearbait, no sugarcoating. Just facts, reality, and what January 2026 actually looks like for Social Security and for real people living in real states. And before we go any further, let me say this clearly. If you rely on Social Security now, if your parents rely on it, or if you expect to rely on it one day, this is not a video you skip. Because what's happening right now won't destroy Social Security overnight, but it will quietly reshape retirement in America if people keep ignoring it. Let's start with the rumor that refuses to die. Social Security is going to zero. That sentence alone has caused more panic than almost anything else related to retirement. So let's address it directly. As of January 2026, Social Security is not going to zero. Not this year, not next year, not even at the projected shortfall date. Even in the worst-case scenario where Congress does absolutely nothing, Social Security would still pay benefits. Reduced benefits, yes. Delayed adjustments, possibly. But zero? No. So where does this fear come from? It comes from one misunderstood phrase that keeps getting repeated without context. The trust fund is running out. That sounds terrifying. And it's intentionally vague. Here's what it actually means. Social Security is funded mainly through payroll taxes, money taken out of workers' paychecks every month. That money doesn't sit in a giant vault somewhere. It flows in, and it flows out. For years, more money came in than went out. That surplus was saved in trust funds. Now, the situation has flipped. More people are retiring. People are living longer. Healthcare costs are higher, and fewer workers are supporting more retirees. So, the system is using those saved funds to cover the gap. And yes, if nothing changes, those reserves are projected to be depleted in the early 2030s. But here's the part that almost never gets said out loud. Even after the trust fund reserves are gone, Social Security would still collect payroll taxes. That means benefits wouldn't disappear. They'd be reduced to what incoming taxes can support, roughly 75 to 80% of promised benefits. That's still painful, but it's very different from zero. Now let's talk about the part that confused everyone in 2026. Because while people were panicking about collapse, checks actually went up. Yes, benefits increased in January 2026. That wasn't a rumor. That wasn't a guess. It happened. A cost of living adjustment was applied to help beneficiaries keep up with inflation. On paper, it looks like good news. Bigger numbers, higher monthly deposits. But here's where reality hits hard. An increase doesn't mean improvement. Because at the exact same time Social Security checks went up, so did everything else. Rent, groceries, utilities, insurance, and especially healthcare. For millions of people, the increase didn't feel like progress. It felt like running just to stay in the same place. And for some, it didn't even cover new expenses. So, now we have a strange situation. In January 2026, Social Security is paying more, but people feel poorer. That contradiction is the heart of the crisis. And it doesn't look the same everywhere. Where you live in the United States changes everything. Let's talk about that. Because when someone in one state says, I'm doing okay, and someone in another says, I'm drowning, they can both be telling the truth. Let's start with California. California is a perfect example of why averages lie. On paper, Social Security benefits here are among the higher ones. But reality doesn't care about averages. Rent in many cities has exploded. Property taxes are high, utilities are expensive, and healthcare costs are brutal. Many retirees in California aren't struggling because their checks are small. They're struggling because their bills are massive. For them, the 2026 increase didn't feel like relief. It felt like a bandage on a deep wound. Now shift to Florida. Florida is one of the most Social Security dependent states in the country. Millions of retirees live here for one big reason. No state income tax. That helps a lot. But there's a trade-off. Insurance costs, especially homeowners and flood insurance, have surged. Property taxes are climbing, and healthcare costs remain a major concern for older residents. So while Social Security stretches further here than in some states, many retirees still live paycheck to paycheck. In Florida, Social Security isn't extra money. It is the plan. Now let's move to Texas. Texas also has no state income tax, which sounds like a win. But Texas has quietly become more expensive in recent years. Housing costs are up. Property taxes can be aggressive. Healthcare access varies dramatically depending on location. Many retirees here worked physical jobs for decades. Their Social Security checks reflect that: modest, reliable, but limited. For them, even the idea of a future reduction isn't theoretical. It's terrifying, because there's no cushion. Next is New York. New York is complicated. Social Security benefits here are relatively strong, especially for people who had higher lifetime earnings. But the cost of living, particularly in urban areas, is unforgiving. Rent alone can consume an entire check. Add healthcare, transportation, and utilities, and the math stops working fast. In New York, retirees often say the same thing: I get more than my relatives in other states, but somehow I'm worse off. Both statements are true. Then there's Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania sits in a middle ground. Lower housing costs in many areas help Social Security go further, and retirement income has some favorable treatment. But healthcare remains the wild card. For seniors with ongoing medical needs, expenses rise faster than benefits, even with the 2026 increase. Now let's talk about Ohio. Ohio represents a large group of states where Social Security still works barely. Housing is relatively affordable. Daily expenses are manageable. But inflation has quietly changed the equation. Groceries cost more. Energy bills are higher. Car insurance is up. The increase helped, yes, but it didn't create breathing room. It prevented collapse. That distinction matters. Let's pause here for a moment, because up to this point, nothing you've heard sounds like a system about to explode tomorrow. And that's exactly why people aren't paying attention. Social Security isn't failing loudly. It's straining quietly. And quiet problems are the most dangerous ones, because they don't force action until it's too late. Now we're in Michigan. Michigan is a state built on work, factories, manufacturing, assembly lines. For decades, people here paid into Social Security faithfully, assuming it would be there when the time came. For many retirees in Michigan, Social Security is paired with a small pension or nothing else at all. When inflation rises, they feel it immediately. When healthcare costs increase, there's no backup plan. When rumors about future benefit cuts spread, anxiety hits hard. In Michigan, Social Security isn't optional. It's structural. A reduction of even 10% wouldn't mean cutting back. It would mean choosing between medication and utilities. Now let's move west to Arizona. Arizona has become one of the fastest-growing retirement destinations in America. Warm weather, lower taxes, a promise of affordability. But something changed. Housing prices skyrocketed. Rent surged. Property taxes followed. Many retirees moved here expecting Social Security to stretch comfortably. Instead, they found themselves competing with younger workers and out-of-state buyers. In Arizona, the 2026 increase didn't solve the problem. It slowed the bleeding. And for people who arrived in the last few years, reality hit fast. Relocating doesn't protect you from inflation. It just changes where you experience it. Now let's talk about Georgia. Georgia represents a growing group of states where Social Security still goes further for now. Lower housing costs help. Daily expenses are manageable. Retirees can still breathe a little. But even here, healthcare costs are rising faster than benefits. And there's another concern many people don't talk about openly: access. Rural healthcare shortages mean seniors often travel farther, wait longer, and pay more, all while living on fixed income. In Georgia, the fear isn't sudden collapse. It's slow erosion. And finally, Illinois. Illinois is unique because the anxiety isn't just about Social Security itself, it's about trust. State financial problems have made retirees hyper-aware of instability. Even though Social Security is federally funded, fear bleeds across systems. Many retirees here ask the same question: if things can fall apart here, why not everywhere? In Illinois, Social Security feels less like a guarantee and more like a fragile promise. So what do all these states have in common? None of them are watching Social Security disappear, but all of them are watching it struggle to keep up. Now let's zoom out, because this is bigger than geography. The real pressure point is time. Social Security was built for a different America. An America where people didn't live as long, where families were larger, where more workers supported fewer retirees. That math no longer works the way it used to. In January 2026, the system is still functioning, but it's operating under stress. And stress reveals truths. Here's one of the hardest truths to say out loud: doing nothing is not neutral. Every year, Congress avoids action. The eventual fixes become more painful. Smaller changes now mean bigger shocks later. And here's where the conversation usually falls apart, because people jump straight to politics. So let's strip that away. This isn't about left or right. It's about arithmetic. There are only a few ways Social Security can be stabilized long-term. None of them are easy. None of them are painless. And all of them make someone angry. Options on the table quietly, behind closed doors include raising the payroll tax cap so higher earners contribute more day, gradually increasing the full retirement age, adjusting benefit formulas for future retirees, slowing cost of living increases, or some combination of all of the above. Notice something important. Almost every proposal protects current retirees more than future ones. That's not an accident. People already collecting benefits are the most politically protected group in America. The real uncertainty falls on those retiring in 5, 10, or 20 years. If you're already retired in January 2026, your benefits are unlikely to vanish. If you're approaching retirement, the picture is murkier. And if you're young, the system you inherit may look very different from the one your parents knew. That's the part no one wants to talk about because it forces uncomfortable planning. Now let's address the question everyone is really asking but rarely says clearly. Should I panic? No, but you should pay attention. Panic leads to bad decisions. Ignoring reality leads to worse ones. Social Security was never meant to be a luxury. It was meant to be a foundation. The danger now is that people treat it like a guarantee instead of what it actually is, a shared system under pressure. Here's what January 2026 tells us clearly. Social Security is not collapsing tomorrow. Benefits are not going to zero. Checks are still being paid. Adjustments are still happening. But the margin for error is shrinking. And shrinking margins change behavior. They change how people retire, how long they work, how much risk they can afford, and how secure the future feels. That's why this conversation matters now, not in 2033, not when reductions become unavoidable, but while there's still room to act. Because once the system is forced into automatic cuts, choices disappear. And here's the final truth. The one that doesn't fit into headlines. Social Security's biggest threat isn't bankruptcy, it's complacency. The belief that because checks are arriving today, they'll always arrive the same way tomorrow. History doesn't work like that. Strong systems survive because people adjust them, not because they ignore warning signs. If you're already retired, awareness helps you prepare mentally and financially. If you're nearing retirement, flexibility becomes your greatest asset. And if you're young, understanding this now gives you something rare: time. Time to plan beyond assumptions. Time to build buffers. Time to adapt. Because the future of Social Security won't be decided in one dramatic moment. It will be shaped quietly, year by year, by decisions made when most people weren't paying attention. And now you are. That alone puts you ahead of the curve.